Mr. Marc Healy, maybe the first to welcome you to the studio for the with the maiden voyage of the Bits Matter podcast.
My pleasure to be here.
We didn't have anybody else to talk to, so we thought Marc's here. We'll bring him on in, and
that's great.
Give us some of his knowledge and his wealth of information. So
I'm humbled and honored to be here.
Well, great. Well, obviously at Element, we always talk about the little bits, right? They're the things that separate the good from the bad, or the good from the great, and so. Part of this whole idea of doing this cast is to look in the retail world and see what other people are doing really good and how we pull it into financial services through different stories. And again, most of these are pretty small things that we'll be talking about. But before we get going, if you could just for the folks that don't know who you are, a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you do now at the Element Group.
All right, yeah. Again, thank you for being here. I'm excited to be here. My name is Marc Healy, as you know. That I've been a banker for over 30 years, and a lot of different aspects and a variety of that role. 12 years operations for a large commercial bank in the Northwest area of the country, Seattle, and so Washington, Oregon, Alaska predominantly. And then about 2 decades, over 20 years, over at credit unions in Seattle and also in Phoenix, Arizona, running retail branches and call centers and all member-facing or customer-facing activities.
Which is where we met, because you actually pulled us in, and we ended up doing about 7 or 8 projects for you at Desert Financial.
Yeah, so it was actually eight to be. And then about 4.5 years ago, you came knocking on my door and asked if I wanted to do something different than I've never done before in terms of being on a business partner side or vendor side of the industry. So.
Which is certainly worked out well for all of us, so we appreciate that. Oh. But I think one of the things that, you bring a skill set that we often talk about, and I think when we talk about these bits, which is bringing some kind of fundamentals and, blocking and tackling to ideas. And, I always joke sometimes that I have the best idea every other day, a new one. But we need folks like you that really going to help us implement those things. And I think that's the hard part, even at our company, but when we look at our banks and credit unions that we work with, similar things, right? We all want to do a lot of stuff, but never really gets rolling. So again, we'll be talking a little bit about that, but you certainly have helped bring that to the Element Group from your, I'll say, formal background in banking and financial services. So
it's been a very quick 4.5 years. And I should say that being the executive director of retail and marketing for the organization.
Great. Well, I know we're going to get started. And we were kicking around this, what kind of story would you want to start with, right? Because we've all got these examples of things that are pretty impressive out in the real world, and then we try to pull them in. And the one we kind of gravitated to originally was the story of my flight on Delta. And again, we both travel a lot for work, and this was going back about 6 years ago. My daughter and I were headed over to see Hawaii State Federal Credit Union. We were opening the very first branch with them. And we're on the flight. And I can remember we were going from Boston to Minneapolis to Oahu. And we got delayed out of Boston a little bit. So our connection in Minneapolis is going to be quite tight. So Bryn and I were talking about, okay, we'll make it, but we got to hustle. And Minneapolis is a big terminal. No bathroom breaks, no lunch. We're going right to the next gate and get on. And of course, flying anyway, your anxiety level's up, never mind thinking you might miss your flight to Hawaii. And so we land in Minneapolis, and I look out and I see a Porsche right at the side of the plane, right down by not the jetway, but the little stairs that go down to the tarmac. And I remember reading just the week before, I never even knew this existed, that they have a program for typically, I think it's their Delta's 360, which is the most elite flyer. These are the guys and women that fly all the time. Mm-hmm. And so oftentimes they'll pick them up right at the plane, drive them across the tarmac to their next gate, get them up in the plane nice and relaxed and comfortable. And occasionally they do it when people are running late. So I remember I said to Bryn, oh, geez, I just saw this for the first time, and here's the car. I wonder who this is, so you kind of get your eyes out like,
look.
Yeah, who's the fat cat on this flight that's getting the private Porsche service to the gate? So we get out of our seats, we're hustling up the aisle, and we're just about to walk off the plane, and there's a woman there holding her iPad with my name on it. And I said, "Oh, that's me." She's like, "Oh, Mr. Baldasaro. Hey, thanks. Follow me." And she opens up the door to walk outside, and immediately I'm thinking, I'm the fat cat today. Like I don't know what happened, but I'm not complaining. So, and the other thing I kept thinking is my daughter's probably like, "Wow, this happens all the time." Like this,
my dad rolls.
yeah, this is the way I roll. So anyway, we go down the stairs, and we meet the driver, and I said, "Geez, I just read about this." He goes, "Yeah, well, when we're not too busy or when we don't have a lot going on, they kind of work down. So they go from like their 360 elite members, and I don't know if there's another version, but then it goes to their diamond and platinum and kind of when it's available." Long story short is we were pretty excited. He puts us in the car. We drive across the runway to our next gate. They walk us back up the flight of stairs, and we're on the plane, 10 minutes before anybody else even gets on. Wow. But I just remember thinking, like, I didn't know that problem existed. Right, as a flyer, sometimes there's mechanical issues and there's weather, and that's just part of flying, right? Those are things that are out of people's control. You just hope you're getting from point A to point B. But I remember thinking, pretty interesting that in this case, Delta thought about how do we even extend or how do we solve a problem that most people wouldn't necessarily perceive as a problem. Nobody's happy if there's a mechanical issue, but you don't think that they're going to be, because you're running late, we're going to pick you up on a Porsche and drive you to your next thing. I thought that was pretty interesting and pretty profound. And then come to find out, it's what we kind of call it a consistently random. So there isn't necessarily a rhyme or a reason. It's kind of when the availability happens, when people are running late, and they work down from the 360s down. I thought
that's
not
impressive. Common knowledge. I had no idea that existed. And how that make you feel?
Oh, you feel like $1 million. You kind of, for at least a period of time, you feel like a big shot. We're out getting photos from the car. In fact, that the gentleman took a picture of Bryn and I, and so yeah, you feel good.
How would you feel if you didn't even know about that? Because you say you just found out about that. How coincidental was that?
Well, yeah, exactly. I've been flying for many years and a lot of flights, hundreds of flights, and didn't even know that existed till I read about it in their little, pamphlet in the back of the flight seat one day. And but to your point, if I knew nothing about it, and I'm walking out and the lady stops me and walks me down the stairs and puts me in a Porsche, I would have been like, "What is going on? Like, like does this exist? What did I win? Is it, it's not my birthday? Like, what was it?" So so either way,
very cool.
It was a great experience. And
how long ago was that, Nate?
Excuse me. That was 6 years ago, and it was the summer of 6 years ago. So I remember it, pretty.
Sounds like you remember it as yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
oh,
and again, it was, for my daughter who had flown before, but she just thought, "Wow, this is awesome. Got to fly my dad more often."
Memorable moment.
Yeah,
and then just think about how you can translate that into roles that we do.
Yeah, and that's obviously our goal when we talk about these things is how do financial services, right, community banks and credit unions create these unique, memorable moments. We're talking earlier. I think it's in the bank world. There's over 4,000 banks. 15 banks control over 70% of all deposits. That's crazy. That's ridiculous to me, right? And if you include credit unions, it's still like 50%. So if I'm a community bank or a credit union, I'm like, well, I know where the prospects are because there are tens of millions of people with those top 15 banks that probably don't need to be with them, right? They probably just think, well, they're big, they're not going away, and COVID helped that myth a little bit too, but they just don't know what to do. Those disgruntled customers. So I think we on our end, we've got to figure out how do we help our customers create unique moments, memorable moments, things that separate them from everybody else in their space, including their local competition, but also these 15 massive organizations.
At the end of the day, excuse me, that all these banks, credit unions, community banks, we're all offering the same. See, I'm still talking. I'm the banker.
Right.
We all offer the same things.
Yeah.
Auto loans, checking accounts, savings accounts, money markets, home equity loans, and how do you do something a little bit different, a little bit more memorable?
Yep. Well, and potentially get a premium. Look what Starbucks did with coffee, one of the most commoditized items in the world, and people are paying $3, $4, $5, $6, $8 for a cup of coffee when they could port themselves for pennies, or go to a lesser known coffee shop but they've created value that people enjoy. They like that experience that they get.
Yep.
And there's other examples too.
That's an excellent example.
Yeah. But I remember thinking when this happened, and part of what we try to do is take small bits of things, right? If we can get our customers, and including ourselves as our own business, if we can take little steps and implement them in the right way. And so, I remember thinking, I wrote down here, there was the three things that I thought were really interesting about that experience that we try to bring in now is, first of all, was they were proactive, right? Yeah. So they saw a problem or an issue or a concern at the time with their senior flyer, with their most valuable flyers, right? How do you make that experience even better? Most likely those people are flying first class. Most likely they're in the Delta Lounge. Who knows? Maybe they got other car services. So these are kind of their big breadwinners. And so how do we even improve that a little bit? So they had to be proactive to say, let's solve a problem that kind of exists, but it may not necessarily exist in the mind of the consumer at that point. So I think that is pretty cool. The other one that we talked about was the consistency or consistently random. And again, this is where you've really brought a lot to us because, we might have all these great ideas, but at some point you got to implement them, right? And you've spent years building systems where you've been, correct?
Oh yeah, process is simple, and it's always sometimes you try to. I'd say a lot of times to my team, you don't need to build a Batmobile all the time. Right. And how do you translate that into banking when you just got to do what did we say just a few moments ago about it's a commoditized business. The products are the same rates, right. Fees, a little bit different here and there. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's the same. How do you do something just a little bit different, right? Just to make it memorable. Yeah. And it's not a. I think in financial services we've created an environment or a what do you call it? A perception in reality of what the experience is going to be. Mm-hmm. And you go in, there's a teller line. You go in there and you go check in and maybe go see a banker. And right. How do you change that? Yeah. That model.
The model. Well, and again, I think, in general, the expectations of a financial service company is very low. Nobody expects to come in and get wowed or have this really unique, memorable moment. They're just thinking, I'm going to come in. Hopefully, it's not a big line. I get what I need, and I walk out.
100% agree. And so it's not that the bar is pretty low, right? And right. To create an exceptional experience for that customer or that member, exactly, is not a huge transformation or shift that is required. Well,
I know in our first office, it was right after, I forget what year the Olympics it was, but when Michael Phelps won the butterfly by 1/100th of a second, right? Not 8 seconds, not 5 seconds, and 1/100th is almost it's hard to comprehend what that is because it's virtually a tie. And you look at the photos and the fingers around the same time, literally the pressure he put, and you think, he wasn't 100% better, 10%. He was 1/100th of a percent, and he's the greatest Olympian probably ever in our lifetime so far. So again, it's doing a little extra all the time to improve yourself. And we'll come back to that in a minute in this example. But the other one was, building systems like you talked about that have some flexibility, right? How do we provide our staff, employees with the ability to kind of make decisions in the field, right? Empower them a bit, which you've done a lot of in your work and coaching and training as well, right?
Oh yeah, it's I keep going back to the branch aspect of it, but you talk about how here's what the senior management wants and expects to occur, but how do you execute that, and how do you execute that consistently in the retail branch space every single day? But it's got to be consistent. It's got and sometimes, as we were talking a few moments ago, that we build processes that are really, really huge. And what's the line? Don't need to build a Batmobile all the time. Right. And so, but just do a little bit more every single day and build upon that. Yep. It becomes habitual, and then processes and activities are consistent.
Which again, I think that's something that plagues us sometimes. Right? We've got a lot of creative people in this company. We have a lot of ideas. You get excited. You start to go down some of these ideas, and even though you're full of good intentions, it's delivered kind of half-ass, right? You haven't really thought through the process. You're not delivering it and consistently redoing it, or allowing the team to have some empowerment to make those decisions, which is huge. And, I think, we were talking, okay, we got this Delta story and kind of the things that they did. Well, what might you pull into a financial institution? And we were just talking the other day, my birthday last month, right? And I think I sent you that morning or that day, I got 4 emails. One was from our company, so we did a good job there. But it was our company, some mortgage guy I'd never even heard of. So somehow he got my address or my birth date. I got one from Delta, and I got one from Hilton, which I'm stay Hilton and fly Delta. And I remember thinking, and again, this is a little thing. You're talking about an email birthday card or birthday note. But because of with my personal banking, Element Group, and some real estate, I'm connected to, I think it's 6 financial institutions. Not a single one.
I ask you how many.
Yeah, not a single one sent me anything about recognizing my birthday. Now, people could say, well, that's not a big deal. But the reality is banks and credit unions have more data on us than most every other company, right? And to send somebody just a simple, hey, happy birthday, where they're recognizing that as a customer or a member, one, it's easy, and it virtually costs nothing, right? So the effort is very low, right? So you kind of allow them to do this and put it out there is kind of step one of you start very small, because you can grow. We'll talk about it in a minute, but such a simple opportunity.
You think so? And I got one of those birthdays coming up as well in a few months. I'll be catching up to you.
Yeah.
And then
thank you.
And then, but you think about the interactions that you as a consumer or customer or member of a credit union, that you're looking at online banking, mobile banking. You get text alerts maybe for some potential fraud issues on your on some. Did you do this transaction or so? Just some nice warning messages.
Right.
But you think. Yeah, I always say that. Went back in my day in the banking side, the IT guys would always say, "Yeah, Mark, you always said that it's just a few hours of IT time." Well, we understand that it takes a little bit of time to make it happen, but we think it's really easy, and it is. It's simple in terms of communicating.
Right.
In those channels, there's multiple channels that you can touch. That you as a consumer touch your financial institution. Most time, several times, multiple times a week.
Absolutely.
Even a day. And so, touch me and just wish me a little happy birthday in that. And that's part of the retail mindset, Nate, that we talk about. Because I know, like I said, I've got a birthday coming up soon. I'm sure the restaurants that I partake in, anything that I've got some loyalty program, I'll get messages. I'll get a little freebie, buy one, get one free or something.
Yep.
And so I think big picture where we need to talk about, which I know we're going to drive to, is how do you continue to just take that retail mindset and inject it into banking? Yeah,
and if you think about it, and again, it sounds like such a simple thing, but not one of those institutions did it. And I can't remember if any institution ever did it, right? So you think about kind of the initial thing of being proactive, right? If it was nothing more than, hey, we got a database of members or customers, we got their birthdays, let's just automate a nice birthday message. Hey, congratulations, and we thank you for being a great partner to our bank or credit union. We appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you next visit. Simple, right? But then you say, okay, then kind of that's the proactive piece. Well, where does the randomness come in, or maybe the tiered levels, right? So again, you can start at just that simple level, but then you say, okay, well, geez, like Delta has their 360 and their Diamond and Platinum. Every institution has a kind of a leveling system within their members or customers based on their share of wallet, right? And so you might say, hey, we've got this this person, it's their birthday, they're a good business account, they have XYZ products and services. We'd love to get them back in the branch, right? We get that all the time. How do we get more action? Well, hey, happy 59th birthday, and be sure to pop into the branch, see the manager, and pick up a coffee mug. Right here, we'd like to just give you a nice coffee mug as a birthday present. Or again, it could be something bigger. Or hey, come on in, scratch off, and it could be a coffee mug, it could be a backpack, it could be something else like that. So I think we need to, when we implement something like that, again, how do you gamify it a little bit so you can gain traction, right? You get the dialogue with a customer, a member, and that's what they're dying to do.
Yeah.
And that thing, sort of things help that.
Oh yeah, and to be able to, where I think a lot of us, again, here I go, I keep saying us as bankers, that COVID even forced more people out of the branches and using remote delivery channels as the preferred transactional device, and then that become habitual, and then now the point is, how do you get people back in? Because I think we all know that the sales activities and efforts occur more at the when they're inside the physical branch or location. So to be able to say welcome, happy birthday, and then also through a channel device, through how they're communicating with you, and then say, hey, come in and get something of a really cool piece of swag. And you talk about, we always talk about this, Nate, about if it's really cool in that, whether it's a mug or shirt, whatever, that you've just now extended your brand outside, and if they're going to use it, so it's got it's
always well
thought out, quality and stuff like that. But you think about that, and you've done something, I think, a little memorable for the consumer.
And that, again, we're talking birthdays. It could be anniversary of opening the account, or your small business loan, or whatever those things are. Right? Choose one, choose two of them, implement something very simple to start, knowing that you can add to the complexity or add to the whatever level of engagement you'd like to get. We just recently paid off a business loan here at the Element Group. We had a 5-year loan, paid it off about 6 months ago. I know exactly what we paid in interest over those 5 years. And again, I'm not faulting this organization, because most people don't do it, but I thought, what a missed opportunity for someone to pick up the phone or our banker to say, hey guys, congratulations. You're growing. You paid off your loan, you went through COVID, you never missed a payment, blah, blah, blah. Awesome job, congratulations. Is there something else we can help you with? Like, what are some of your next needs as a growing company? Didn't happen. And so, and again, otherwise they've been very good to us, but I thought a point of engagement for very incremental work could have been had by that.
It's just, here we go. It's just a little bit.
Yeah.
Hence the name.
Yeah, every bit matters.
Yeah, so, just a little bit.
But I want to, we got a few minutes here left, and again, sometimes these may go on longer formats, and we can certainly get rambling ourselves. But I want to talk about a kind of a real world situation that happened recently, and I'll let you explain it. But we're doing work for a fairly large credit union in California, over 70 locations. And they came to us to design a new proto model for their new branch, and something that's going to roll out. And one of the things that we've been talking about a while here is it's wonderful to build these really nice, progressive, modern-looking environments with great technology. But if we keep the same mindset of what the branch was 10 years ago, we missed the point, right? So if you can talk a little bit about kind of what we're doing and some of the reaction you've gotten and how that extends it.
Well, thanks for letting me, because I'm excited to talk about this and share this with you. You know most of the details on it, Nate, but the large financial, 6th, 7th largest in the credit union in the country out of California, and came to us saying that, we got to change the way we deliver financial services. Everything we're talking about of a retail mindset, it was something that they were looking to achieve, and they weren't getting it with their architect that they've been using for a long time. So after a series of a few conversations and meeting with their executive team, we got a little bold with them and told them that, if you don't think your branch is a retail store, you're missing the boat. And that might have been word for word. And they absolutely agreed with it. They knew that they had to change. And so whole new prototype, how they were going to engage in financial services. So that was the big piece of it. One thing that we also introduced to them, which was we were talking to them frequently about that. Oh yeah, you can have the coolest technology, the wonderfulest looking branch. It looks great, but don't forget about people. the human capital,
Yep.
that which is the critical piece of it. And so we opted to, myself and a colleague of ours, Mac
Yep.
Erickson, him and I, and spent a couple days with them and started going through a training exercise with them, focused directly at the branch level.
Right.
And then there's, because we knew that the success depends on how the staff delivers the financial services that they were trying, that they had visioned in their mind,
Right.
but executing is a little bit more
Right.
difficult.
Right.
So that
Well, and before you go, I know often cases we always assume that the institution has that buttoned up.
Yeah.
But what happens is they're so focused on the renovation, they're so focused on new technology and kind of the physical training of it. Here's how you use this thing. They forget about, okay, how do we introduce this to members or customers? Right? How do we build the choreography so that they're comfortable on the consumer side as well as the staff?
as we always say, Nate, let's understand the experience you want, then wrap the walls around it.
Right.
A lot of times that equation is reversed.
Yep.
And so we brought a little different mindset to their approach.
Yep.
So and so talking about in several financial institutions, like I said, the senior manager has one expectation, but sometimes maybe there's layers of communication it takes to get to the actual
Yep.
branch level.
Right.
So that's where the rubber meets the road. And so like I said, we spent a couple of days out with them, real world role playing scenarios, interactive sessions. Somebody's walking, parks their car and gets out and starts walking. And now what?
Right.
And how do you engage people the moment they come through your front door?
Right.
And very, very similar to somebody knocks on your front door at your house. You welcome them. It starts
Right.
there. But so, but we did, like I said, a lot of role playing and a lot of confidence building
Right.
with the team about and understanding the why behind the what, because understanding why why teller pods or digital signage or technology is placed in certain areas.
Yep.
And the whole you use the word choreography. How the member journey, how was that going to occur, and the employee journey at the same time.
Yep.
So I can tell you that not only was that I call it life changing, but it's execution changing at the retail branch level, as to the point that I got the day 2, the branch manager asked me to sit down and observe an interaction he was going to role play with one of his employees or associates, so that and to give feedback. So he just wanted to see how it was going from my perspective, and so it was wonderful to see the confidence of that branch team and how they executed from day one.
Right.
And we stuck around on day 1 as well and watched and observed and provided some feedback, which was absolutely more positive than constructive throughout the so I was impressed.
Yeah.
But I thought, if you don't mind me,
Absolutely.
if
I got a couple.
I got the feedback. It's only as good as I can think that we did a good job. But then within about 4 days after they opened, got a message that I'm going to read it directly. Quote: We can't thank you enough for the liftoff. The team has hit the ground running and embraced our new surroundings and branch identity. Another person: your insight and coaching have left a lasting impression on our staff. So I'm going, wow, okay, because they were going to operate in a manner, if we didn't train, as they've done in the past.
Right.
When the facility was radically different than they'd ever done. And then followed up a month later, the first 30 days went about as good as it could have. This is the branch manager. Our team has truly embraced the new concept, and our members have enjoyed the more interactive experience.
Great.
So, and then to the point that, so it makes me feel proud, managing branches for over 20 years, to see that execution out of the gate was a thrill for me.
Yeah.
But the senior manager says, wow, that is an evolution. And they said it was a milestone in their financial institution history of how they're going to deliver. It was
Right.
a big changing point,
Right.
to the point that they've asked us, 60 plus branches, they've asked us to come back, and the physical environment is one thing, but
Right.
the execution of the branch is another. So
That's
we're going to go
great.
back in and help them all their other locations well.
Well, and I think for both our company and their company, there were a couple things that were consistent. One, the proactivity. So, we talked about, having done this in the past and maybe not done the training, you see the execution or lack thereof. So we're a little proactive to say, we want to help you with this training. They were great enough to accept it. And now, obviously, they're really seeing some additional value. So that'll allow us to go and do that. So again, we're bringing the consistency of, we're going to be working with all of their team members, and we're talking about developing some video based for as new people come on board and future. So keeping that consistency in training and making sure, or if there's new technology, that it's bumped up as well to there.
Well, if I may, Nate, that because at the 30,000 foot level, they were wanting to move away from transaction-oriented type
Right.
behaviors.
Yeah.
That's almost secondary. That's, table stakes, as we always say.
Yep.
You got to figure out how to do a transaction somehow.
Right.
But they really wanted more consultative advisory services, so
Right.
that somebody walked into that branch,
Mm-hmm.
they became smarter about financial services when they walked out of that branch.
Absolutely.
So that was the point we were trying to hammer home
Yeah.
with them, and it resonated. And so it's doing something really
and
cool.
we hear it from everybody, right? If community banks and credit unions want to compete more effectively against all these big monster banks out there, that's part of what they have to do. They got to be consultative in nature. And again, that's creating a different environment, creating a unique experience, training to do that, and prepping for when people walk through that door. So again, I think it's
and talk to them.
Just
talk to them.
Right.
Create engagement areas that you just learn.
Yeah.
I learned about you, and everybody else listening to this podcast learned about that you just had a birthday.
Yep.
You know what? There's a trigger point in terms of how do you capture that and then execute on, next year at this time, I better know Nate's birthday. He's gonna
Exactly.
hit a mile. He's going to hit a milestone next year. So that,
Exactly.
but you got to create those
Yeah.
and move away from order taker mentality to more proactive conversations with the consumers that are in your branch.
And that training also puts some of the weight on the employee. Right now, they're given the power to make decisions in the field on the fly. Right? They don't have to always go back to a manager. Right? They've been trained that I can do this or I can do that. At the end of the day, whatever's in the best interest of the consumer and certainly the business, we got to give them the power to make those decisions. So
100%.
I think it was a huge piece for us. So thank you for that. And again, as we talk about this and this being our really first cast, I can even see diving deeper into things like the training, or we're about to execute on our consumer birthday campaign. So in a month or two down the road, we may be able to share exactly what we're doing and how it can be executed from their point of view. Again, I can see a lot of little different videos coming out on real specifics where you take a deeper dive into these things.
Excellent. If we're and do it internally here, and so come June,
Practice what we preach.
Come June at
That's right.
I'll eagerly be waiting with anticipation.
Great. By this time next year, I'll have a really good present waiting for me. So that's good. Anyway, we're going to wrap that up here today. Before we end off, though, we do have a couple little gifts for you. I'm going to ask Bryn, who's
For
producing
me?
this for us. Let me start with the two small ones, the mug and the. We'll bring out the Grand Poobah at the end. So
the mug I just drank off.
the stunt mug that's kept in the studio. So you got your very own Bits Matter
very cool.
podcast. I know you don't like coffee, but it holds pale ale.
Yeah, I'm
And-
from Seattle, and I don't drink.
There you
coffee,
go.
but
And you
hey,
got a Bits Matter T-shirt.
Very cool.
So you probably be wearing that on all your cruises coming up soon. And then to fill your cup, we've got the
oh my goodness.
the Element IPA.
Oh,
So,
there you go.
Yeah, this is
Wow.
no wonder not a lot of work gets done around this office. So we'll have to crack that open before you leave here in the next day or two. And
That's awesome. Well, thank you.
you're welcome. We can test drive our new mugs with that.
Yeah.
So, but again, Marc, thank you very much.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
We're going to see if we get a subscriber here. We haven't caught Rogan yet or Sean Ryan, but we're well on our way. So thank you. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
And hope, my friend, that we're gonna find a chance to love just one more day. If you're gonna break down